Curated chapter. Stories worth knowing. Hand-selected voices. Fascinating people. Hidden stories with Sam Youmans.
Welcome to the Curated Chapter, formerly Newsgram. I'm your host, Sam Youmans. We call it the Curated Chapter because this is a short, chapter-sized look at books, an episodic peek into an author's passion project, if you will. And today we're going on a spiritual journey. If you're someone who believes in angels and spirit guides, then none of this is going to surprise you. But if you're not, I'm just going to ask you to keep an open mind, because at its core, this story, the one we're talking about today, is something that we all understand. The pain we carry. The kind of pain that follows us, that shapes us, and sometimes it does it without us even realizing it. And what if I told you that pain, it isn't random? What if there's a reason for it? And what if, when it's no longer serving you, there's actually a way to let it go? Those are some deep questions, right? Well, today we're going to explore a work of spiritual fiction called Wonders of the Soul by Helen P. Slater.
One day my guide spoke to me and some angels, and I went on a healing path, and I wanted to write it down to inspire others that they can also heal. So I wasn't treated very well when I was young, and it was affecting me quite badly. And so I went on a healing path, and so I've written some of it down for other people to benefit from the insights that I had and what I learned.
That experience became the foundation for the story we're looking into today. It centers around a healer named Prudence and the three women that find their way to her. Now, they're looking for answers because something in their lives just doesn't feel right.
The book starts with the lives of three women, Abigail, Sandra, and Charlotte. And when we're introduced to each of them, they're grappling with some problems in their life. Abigail is beginning to reflect on her marriage, that it might not be as good as she thought it was, and is beginning to question her life with her husband. And Sandra is very alone. She doesn't speak to anyone but her boss and her cat. She thinks people are cruel, especially cruel to animals, but people are cruel. So she has that. And then there's Charlotte, who is beginning to have a tough time at work. In fact, her boss sexually assaulted her in reality. And she's beginning to feel that something like that happened to her in her childhood.
Each of these women brings something different with them. Experiences that haven't fully settled, questions that haven't been answered, moments that still feel unresolved. And that's where Prudence comes in.
And we introduce the healing circle, the spiritual healing circle, run by a lady called Prudence, Prue for short. And these three ladies go and are in the healing circle with a number of other women. And they talk about their problems, each of them in turn. And Prue gives them a healing. She listens to her guides. She brings in divine source energies of living light, conscious streams of living light. And she questions these women. She goes down, down, down and questions them. When did this happen to you? Why is this happening to you? And the women grow stronger as they relate their stories.
The process is designed to take each of them back to where the pain first started and to help them gain insight into their unique circumstances.
The way they tell their stories turns with the healing. So Abigail is like, well, maybe I'm going to just divorce my husband and that's okay. You know, he cheated on me. Why would I stay with him? And Sandra says that she is now feeling better about people and she can relate to them more. She can relate to the women in the circle more. So for her, the healing is finding people of like-mindedness with her. And so it's about her intuition. And then for Charlotte, she was sexually abused by her father in her childhood. And so she learns to say no and also to find her creativity.
Life here on Earth can be a real challenge sometimes. The focus here is on helping the reader understand that this kind of soul healing is possible and that it can play a role in your everyday life. There are other characters woven throughout the story as well, and as it unfolds, the idea underneath it all becomes clear. The pain we carry doesn't just come from one moment. It builds, it lingers, and sometimes it stays there until you understand its purpose. And that idea doesn't just live inside the story, it comes directly from the author's life.
It happened in 2020. I kind of woke up, as they call it, and I started doing healings on myself and my friends.
The story itself, she says, came to her through that same process.
Well, the book was actually channeled by my divine guides, and I met them in 2020, and they said, we've got a book for you. Do you want to write it? And I said, yes. And they said, it's a spiritual book. Now, I'd been in a process with these divine guides of healing myself, and they said, wouldn't it be fun to introduce this to other people in a way that they could understand? Not heavy, not intense, not too deep, but just an idea of what it would be like to accept that there's a divine consciousness pervading all of existence, and that we can tap into that and understand our journey through life in that way.
Did you catch that part about being in a process with her divine guides? Let's take a closer look at that.
When I was 4, a star came to me and said, you're going to be a healer. And I was really pissed off at my family at the time because they weren't very nice to me. I said to the star, no way.
So for Helen, it started early and continued to shape who she became.
I became more compassionate and more understanding of people and their problems, because I was quite isolated because I was ill for a while. And it just opened me up, and that everyone has a hurt somewhere, and everyone has a life and a soul to be appreciated. And it began my healing journey again. I started healing people from then on. And so it was very good for me that people out there need this. There are people who are crying out for some sort of understanding and some sort of transformation. And this healing that I offer, which my guide said is called Arcturus healing, it changes lives in a very gentle and beautiful way. My guides are wonderful.
And that brings us back to where this story started. As she says, everyone has a hurt somewhere. If you're someone who's asking questions about your own life, you might find something here. Wonders of the Soul by Helen P. Slater. It's a story about healing shaped by the author's own experiences and written for young readers navigating relationships, family, and the challenges that come with them. If you'd like to learn more about Helen and the work that she does, you can visit her website, thestoryofmysoul.com. There she does a regular blog post, and you can find out more about her other books and her work as a healer. Sometimes asking hard questions about your life is how a new chapter begins. And that will do it for this episode of the Curated Chapter. Thanks for listening.
The Curated Chapter. Stories worth knowing. Stories worth knowing. Hand-selected voices. Fascinating people. Hidden stories. Hidden stories with Sam Youmans. Sam Youmans. The Curated Chapter. Stories worth knowing.